Shakoach. Good Yontif, everybody. Oh, we haven't been fasting that long, have we? Good Yontif.
Good Yontif.
All right, give me a little energy here. Share with you a story about Yitzhak Perlman. You know the name, I hope. The legendary Israeli-American violinist. He came on stage once to give a concert at Lincoln Center in the city. Those who've seen Perlman play, you know that for him just to get up on the stage, it's no small feat. He was stricken with polio as a child. And so he has braces on his legs. He walks up to the stage slowly, but with that certain majesty that he has. He puts his crutches down on the floor. He picks up his violin. He begins to play. But on this particular evening, it went wrong. He's just finished playing. The first couple of bars, right at the start of the concert, one of the strings on his Stradivarius violin, it's $1 million violin, breaks. You could hear it snap. It just goes off like gunfire. Well, everyone thought that's it. He'll have to slowly get up, take his crutches. Perhaps we'll just come back another evening, a rescheduled program instead. On this particular night, Perlman waited a moment. God knows what prayer he said. I wish I know what prayer he said that night. And he signals to the conductor, start up again. And the orchestra begins. And with one string missing, he began to play right from where he had left off. And he plays with such passion and power, the people had never heard anything like it. Because if you know anything about music at that level, if you know anything about orchestral music and symphonic works, it's impossible to play that with only 3 strings. And yet, here's Yitzhak Perlman on that night refusing to know that it's impossible. And you could see him modulating and changing and recomposing the piece in his head all in an instant. At one point, it sounds like he's retuning some of the strings just to get a new sound from them that they've never made before. And he finished that night in awesome silence. People rose. They cheered. There's an outburst of applause, and in his humble way, Yitzhak Perlman gets up, a little smirk. He wipes the sweat from his brow, and he said these words. They're words that the music world will never forget, but they're the words that I'm holding to on this Yom Kippur. He said, sometimes, it's the artist's task to find out how much music you can still make with the strings you have left. How much music can you make with what you have left? Because on Yom Kippur, on this sacred day, it's as if our entire lives come into clearer focus. My story, my name, who I am, but where I come from, and who will be after me, all of it comes into view a little more clearly today. And we recognize on Yom Kippur that life, well, it's like what our sages said in Hebrew. It's a chalom ne'uf, that it's a dream that just flies away, with how quickly the days pass. So I'll ask you Perlman's question. What music are you making with what you have left? With the days that you do have on this earth, however they may be. Are you playing that music that you want to be playing? Do you need to retune the strings a little bit? Do you need to modulate into a different key? Can we have the courage, as Perlman did, even if we feel that we're playing with a broken string in this life, or two, some of us, to look within and to find there a melody that simply must be shared? You know, Judaism to me, it's not just a set of rules we have to follow, a set of things we have to do to please God. For me, that's way too simple. It's about putting, for me, the biggest questions of life front and center, and this day more than any other, trying to understand what are the building blocks of a life that is truly tov, that is truly good. What are those melody notes that when we string them together form a melody that will be heard and loved, God willing, and repeated long after we're gone? Well, we have an answer. Our sages have an answer. Judaism has an answer. If you had to try to venture one, what music can you make with the strings that you have left? Well, our sages say you could boil it all down. 3 things. It's the relationships you build, it's the memories that you make, and it's the legacy that you leave. It's the relationships that you build, the memories you make, and the legacy you're going to leave. Relationships. Rabbi Kushner, I mentioned on Rosh Hashanah, who I just love, he tells a story when, for him, life came finally into clearer focus. He says he's sitting on a beach one day. He's watching 2 children, a boy and a girl. They're playing in the sand, and they're really hard at work building one of those elaborate sandcastles that you just see, and you think, how is that even possible? With the moats and the tunnels, and they're working for hours, and they've just nearly finished when a wave comes and knocks it all down, and it's nothing more than a heap of wet sand. And Kushner says, the rabbi, I expected those children who are working for hours to burst into tears, to be devastated as I would be. Well, we learn from children. He says he's surprised when he found that instead, they ran up the shore away from the water, laughing and holding hands. They sat down to build another castle, and he's shocked until he says and realizes, well, isn't that life? Isn't that life in this world where so much is uncertain, I don't have to tell you, and unexpected, and changed plans, and so much of what we build is fragile, and in an instant it seems it could all get washed away, everything we worked for, like wet sand. Well, if that happens, Kushner asks us, will you have a friend whose hand you can hold as you start to build anew? Will you have a friend? Will you have a person who you've invested in that relationship, whose hand you can hold as you keep walking and build again? I'll ask you, what does friendship look like in your life in 5782? Be honest. In a pandemic world, I know, where it's complicated to see people we care about, to spend time with people we care about. In a tech world, where I'm doing this most of the day and it's easy to isolate. In a social media world, where you have 1,000 friends on Facebook and yeah, you know all their birthdays, but do you talk to them? Do they lift you up? Do you invest in what you have with them? Are you able to say, I have what the Torah says when the Torah speaks about the great friendship of our tradition between David and Jonathan? It says they were nikshara b'nefesh, that they were connected at the soul. That through that devotion and friendship that they had with one another, they were able to journey through life together, just lifting each other up. Not because they had to. Not because they're getting anything out of it. Not because there's any bond other than the bond of what we call a chaver, true friend. Quoted before, a humorous novel that I love that speaks about friendship in 2021. It says there are a lot of types of friends these days. There are the friends you don't like. Then there are the friends you do like, but you never bother to see them. The ones you really like a lot, of course, but you can't stand their spouse. The friends you have just out of habit, but you can't shake it off. Then there's the friends that you're friends with, not because you really like them, but because you know you're going to get something out of it. They're popular, whatever it is. Friends of convenience, of course. They're usually the work friends. Pity friends. You stay with them because you feel sorry. There are acquaintances who are really just friends on probation. And the list goes on. But as you think about that melody that gives music to each of your days on this earth, do you know what it means to have a true chaver, or two or three if you're blessed? A friend who you can count on and learn from and grow with, who can learn from you and grow with you. Are you willing to put in that effort? Because we know it takes flexibility and it takes energy and it takes time to invest, but are you willing to do it? Can you know what the Talmud says? And this is a quote you're going to take with you. The Talmud, speaking about the meaning of life and loneliness, says, O chavruta, o matuta. Give me a friend or give me death. Because it's not a full life if you just try to go at it alone. It's too hard. Can you know this Yom Kippur how much richer the melody of your life will be if at the end of your days you can look back and see it wasn't just a solo performance. You could see that it was a harmony. Relationships you build. It's about the memories that you create. It's about the legacy you leave behind. I spoke about friendship and relationship. What about the memories? Well, we know today's a day for Yizkor. We know that today, we just did it, is a day for memory. It's a day for knowing that just as true friendship endures, so too memory endures and lasts. It's a day for thinking about our relationship with those in our lives and how we can improve those relationships. But two, what about our relationships with those who have gone from our lives? We look at these lights that illuminate our sanctuary. We try to feel their presence today. We try to hear their voices today. We try to see in our mind's eye their smiles. You have to remember, your Hebrew name, who you are, every single one of us as a Jew, who you are, your Hebrew name has to be followed by two letters. You know which two? Ben or Bat. Because who you are is because of those who came before you, those who are with us in spirit and in memory on this sacred day when we come before God empty-handed. No food, no drink, nowhere to go. We have an entire day just to be present. Well, what did they leave you with? What gifts are you holding today from those who came before you, those who you know your name is not your name without their names? Share with you a poem. I heard this earlier in the summer. I said, I got to share this one. It's beautiful because it speaks about something that I think we can all relate to. The poet earlier in life didn't really recognize the gifts that the parent gave to them, didn't really appreciate all that the parent or grandparent perhaps gave to them, wanted their parents to be different, wanted their parents to do more, something else. And then, later in life, on a day like today, takes a step back and is able to see a little more clearly. Poem's called All I Got Was Words. It's a cute rhyme, but it's more than that too. When I was young and fancy-free, my folks had no fine clothes for me. All I got was words. I was wont to travel far. They couldn't really afford a car. All I got was words. I wanted to increase my knowledge. I wanted to go to a fancy college, but all I got was words. Well, the years have flown. The world has turned. Things I've forgotten. There are things I've learned. Yet I remember those words. Zog dememes, gib tzedakah, hol brachmanas, zeh a mensch. Tell the truth, give tzedakah, have compassion, and be a mensch. All I really needed were words. My friends, on a day of Yizkor, we get quiet. We listen to the melody of a life that we're building, but we hear in it the voices of those who made us who we are. We listen for their wisdom, for their guidance. We try to hear their words through the power of memory today, and we honor them today through that. Relationships we build, memories we cherish as Jews, and lastly, the legacy that we leave. Famous exchange, maybe you've heard this, between a reporter and Groucho Marx. So the reporter is interviewing Groucho, and he asks him a simple question. Reporters ask this all the time. What would you like people to say about you in 100 years? And so without skipping a beat, with that typical Jewish wit, Groucho Marx says they should say that he looks really good for someone his age. But on Yom Kippur, we really do stop. In addition to relationships, in addition to the memories that we're cherishing, we really do stop to think on this day, well, what will they say about me in 100 years? On this day when we wear all white, that is the custom because we're supposed to imagine the fullness of our lives, but also the end of our lives. What will they say? What will become of my Shem, of my name? Our sages tell us the greatest thing a person can achieve in this world, the very greatest, it's not your bank account, it's not the cars in the driveway, a Shem Tov, a good name, a name that people will hear and think of you and say, oh, a mensch. So today, yeah, we beat our chests and we know we're not perfect, but what does it mean to strive, to orient a life when we walk out of this building in 5782 that will include a legacy that we'll leave for those we love and those we don't even know, to write our names on their hearts? How do we do it? Great philosopher from the seminary, Rabbi Heschel, would say, when I was young, I admired clever people. Now I'm a little older. I admire kind people. And then he'd ask his students, are you becoming the kind of person you would admire? Are you? One more story that I love comes to us from a great spiritual teacher, Rachel Remen. And she reflects on her life as a younger woman, her childhood with her mother. When she would come home from school on Friday afternoon, she would be so blessed to be able to see her mother there getting ready for Shabbat. She could hear the sound of her mom's voice calling out to her, it's time, come in, it's Shabbos. The sound of her voice saying the words of prayer and the blessing. So as Rachel tells the story later in life, she's grown up, her mother is much, much older now, and she mentioned this to her mother, reminding her just how blessed she feels to remember those Friday nights, how powerful they were. And the mom, who at this point is nearing the end of her life, says to her, reminds her, Rachel, my dear, I blessed you on those Friday nights, it's true, but I've done my best to bless you every single day of your life. Just didn't always have the wisdom to do it out loud. So on this day, when we think about relationships and memories and the legacies that we leave behind, this day that leads us to a year, I hope you'll have the wisdom to bless those in your lives with the fullness of who you are, but have the wisdom to do it out loud, to let the people you love know how much you love them in this world where the days do just fly away. And I know how much can distract us in a year. Today we're able to reflect, but typically the days are heavy with drama and with conflict and with disagreement and walls that we put between us and others and the ego that can weigh us down. We're only human after all. We get caught up in a friend who slighted us, and so we block them out. Or the memory of a parent or a grandparent where we just focus on that which was imperfect about them rather than the good, and us too far from perfect. We're musicians in the orchestra of life that break strings, that go out of tune, and that play out of turn, I know. But if this Yom Kippur is to mean anything, if it's to say anything to us, hold on to that story of Yitzhak Perlman, who had the courage to keep playing, to wrestle a beautiful melody out of an imperfect instrument. That's what we are. So, as a Jew, we're here for a reason, to strive and to build friendships that are holy and lasting, to hold on to and guard that precious gift of memory that we all have, the words that were given, the gifts were given, and to strive to let those who come after me know that I blessed them, or at least that I tried. So what music are you making with the strings you have left, with the days you're given this year and every year? It's up to you, your choice. But I hope in the quiet moments of prayer through the rest of the service today, and in the song that you hear from this bima, which is the song of our heritage and our prayers, that it'll echo with you as you walk out the door. On Yom Kippur, it's true, we say the gates of heaven are closing. We say the book is being sealed, and yet we know the last words have not been spoken. The last sentence has not been written. The final verdict is not in, not for any of us. The last notes of our lives have yet to be played. So may the song of your life be one that carries you and those around you, your family and your friends, those who will one day be sitting in these seats thinking of you. May it be a song that lifts and inspires, a song of our people, a song of your name, of your Shem, and may all who hear it be blessed. Good Yontif, everybody. Our traditional service continues on here. I'll be heading to the tent for the alternative family-friendly service. You're welcome to join me there or stay here for the remainder of the traditional service. Good Yontif, everybody.